What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be comparing the outgoing 2024 Tesla Model Y to the all-new 2026 Tesla Model Y. Let's get into it. Now, these aren't exactly a one-to-one. The 2024 here is a Model Y Performance, so it's got a couple different specs here and there because of that performance package. Over here on 2026, this is the long-range rear-wheel drive variant, but it still has a lot of similarities, and we're really not going to be talking about the performance of the vehicles as much since we don't have a Model Y Performance for 2026 to compare it to yet, but just more of the visual differences and the build differences between the 2 years. But we'll go ahead and start here up front. So this is the very classic Model Y look, right? Model Y and Model 3 before it got refreshed as well, with these pretty large split headlights here on the front of 2024 and 2025. Here in 2026, built in 2025, but it's a 2026 model, you have just one light bar that runs across the front of the vehicle here. So this is a running light. It's gonna have your turn signal built into this little slit here, and then your main beams and your high beams are gonna be in this portion down here. One other really stark difference between the two front grills is you are gonna have a front bumper camera here on 2026, whereas here in 2024, you do not have that. But outside of that, really the designs of like the mouth and stuff is sort of similar. It's a little bit more flat here and squared off, whereas this has a little bit more of a roundedness to it, and that whole kind of theme kind of works its way around the whole vehicle, right? This is more kind of angular Cybertruck-ish, and then this is more kind of old style Tesla. Now, another spot where you'll really notice the design differences here are on the frunks. So you can see on the lip of this frunk, much more squared off design, and it goes all the way up to the edge of the light bar here. On 2024 and back, you've got sheet metal in front of the frunk, and it's much more rounded off. Plus you have a Tesla badge there, which you do not have over on 2026. They got rid of that altogether. But we can go ahead and lift these frunks up. So no powered frunk on either of these models, still not a thing yet. Only the Cybertruck has the powered frunk. But there's a couple big differences that you're gonna notice. One, on 2024 and back, the wiper fluid hole is right here up at the top. They moved it down to the front, so you spill less stuff inside of the frunk now than you did on the previous version. There's a couple other little changes. The tow hook gets moved from the floor of the frunk up to the sidewall here on 2026. And in 2026, you now have a drain plug hole. So you could fill this with ice, water, keep drinks cold on a brutal hot day like this. And then when you're ready to drain all the water, just take the drain plug out. It'll all spill out the bottom and you'll be good to go. Here on 2024, you do not have that. It's just a completely closed off frunk. And although they do have a couple design differences, it stays at that 4.1 cubic feet of cargo space in both frunks. Now, I mentioned we are dealing with different trim levels here. So on the 2026 here, which is the long range rear wheel drive, we have the 19-inch cross flow wheels. So they're gonna be more similar to your just standard base wheels with the wheel covers on them that are pretty closed off. Over here on the 2024 Performance, we're gonna have the 21-inch Uber turbine wheels, classic performance style wheel that we used to have on Teslas. You're gonna have your red brake calipers back there. You have the same camera system on both. They're both hardware 4. Up here, you're gonna have a little bit of a redesign on the side mirrors. So over here on 2024, you'll see there's no little slit here, but you're gonna have a little bit more kind of aerodynamic sculpting over here on this side mirror. Dimensionally, they're basically exactly the same. From the research that I've done, it seems that in 2026, it's about an inch longer, maybe a little over an inch longer, but the height, width, and wheelbase stay exactly the same for both models. You've got very similar body lines on both, the way that the B-pillar is designed, the way that the door handles are designed, exactly the same. The only other real kind of design thing here on the front half of the vehicle is the roof. So over here in 2024, you do have a tinted roof, and it's one beautiful sheet of glass, same as you have over here on the 2026, although they changed it. They added a silver coating to the roof, which is supposed to make it about 7 times more sun repellent than it was before. So you should, being the key word, have a cooler cabin overall in the summer. It just depends on how hot it is where you live. Here, it's like 100 degrees right now. And I think I do notice a little bit of a difference. I think it's mostly like a visual thing though. I haven't exactly been able to test them one-to-one and see how much cooler it actually seems. But I mean, 7 times is a pretty large factor. So I would assume that it is making some amount of difference. Now, as far as performance goes, obviously we're dealing with different trim levels. So on-road performance is gonna be a little bit different between these two models. Although there are some significant improvements in 2026 to the performance, even with this being a long-range rear-wheel drive model. So over here on the Model Y Performance, you're gonna get about a 3.5 second 0 to 60, but only about 277 miles of range, you know, estimated. So typically you won't get that either. If you just did like the all-wheel drive model, it's like 311 miles, and then it goes up from there to like 320 something miles of range on the long-range rear-wheel drive for 2024. Now over here on the long-range rear-wheel drive for 2026, you're gonna get about 357 miles of range. So pretty significant range difference. And if and when we get a 2026 Model Y Performance, I'm gonna assume it has basically the same performance, if not a tad better than the 2024, and will have improved range, probably somewhere close to 300 miles or maybe a little bit under that, like we have on the Model 3 Performance. And here in 2026, we have additional improvements to the suspension. Now, it's not an adaptive suspension, but it does have improved components that are intended to make it quieter and smoother overall. And in my testing, I did find the suspension in the 2026 to be very impressive, very smooth, very quiet, handles very well, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, so moving to the back of the Model Ys here, I think you're gonna notice a pretty significant visual difference, at least when it comes to the tail lights. So the big kind of selling point here in 2026 is this first of its kind indirect LED light bar that runs across the back. So what I mean by indirect is there's a light that shines down onto this little textured plastic bit that's up underneath, gives it a nice reflective glow, and then at night it will actually show up on the ground as kind of a cool little stance piece, really nice. And then you have this similar taillight design that we have on the Model 3 refresh. Now over here in 2024, we have the pretty typical Tesla taillight design. It's a split taillight design here in 2024, whereas it's all one component that's integrated into the tailgate. So when you actually lift the tailgate up, it takes the whole thing with it instead of doing this split design here that we have on 2024. Now, one thing to mention, we do have the carbon fiber performance spoiler here. Because it's a performance model, no such thing over here on this Model Y. And we do get some noticeable design differences between the two. So this piece of glass here, a little bit more squared off, much more rounded here in 2024. This sheet metal piece here is much longer and a little bit more barren than it is over here in 2024. You've got all your badging and stuff dotted around on this one, but nice plain piece of sheet metal here. And the plastic cladding here on 2026 comes up much higher than it does here on 2024, which makes repairability and likelihood of getting damaged a lot less likely and more affordable. Charging ports are going to be in the same spot here. They both do 250 kilowatt fast charging, and the 2026 does come with a mobile charger. We've got rear cameras on both, a little bit of a different placement there. You do have the Tesla badge on 2024, whereas you have the Tesla word mark in 2026. Kind of a thing that they're doing, kind of changing the way things are badged. But yeah, pretty significant design differences between the two back ends. You're gonna have a powered liftgate on both, so you can push the button up underneath on both. A couple things inside that you're gonna notice. First and foremost, on 2024, you're gonna get a lot more plastic here. You still get some carpet, but just a lot more of this kind of clicky-clacky plastic that's a little bit more likely to get damaged. Whereas here in 2026, we have an entire carpeted piece here, a little bit more premium, helps with sound dampening, and is just a little bit easier, in my opinion, to take care of. I've had a lot of cargo areas that have these plastic trunk kind of covers. They always get damaged. There's just no way around it, they get damaged. And I'm sure with all the millions of Tesla third-party accessory makers, you could find some kind of protective cover for this, so your carpet won't get messed up, but still, it's easier to care for than this, in my opinion. So if I take the all-weather mat out, you can see the design of these a little bit more closely. So we still have a cargo shade for both. You still have the underfloor storage for both. All of that dimensionally is going to be the same. You're going to have the side pockets on both. Now, the method in which you drop your second row seats is a little bit different. So here in 2024, you have these little toggles. If you just toggle them, it's going to swing those second row seats down. But then if you want to put them back up, you've got to go manually put them back up. And if your front seats are too far back, when you swing those second row seats down with the toggle, they're just going to smack up against the driver's seat or passenger seat and not be able to fold down. But Tesla thought of that in 2026, so we now have power up and down second row seats here. So we've got little buttons we can push on the side here in the same general vicinity as those toggles. But one really neat thing that they do is if your front seats are too far back, they're gonna slide forward a little bit as those second row seats come down and then slide back. and vice versa. They'll lean forward, second row seats raise up. So you never have that weird kind of bumping up against each other that can happen when you have manually dropping seats, or even if you have power dropping second row seats on another vehicle, you're still gonna run into that same issue. And that happens to me all the time when I make car videos. I'm like trying to drop the electronic seats, boom, right up against the driver's seat. It's such a pain in the butt. But Tesla thought of that and they fixed it. You can click both buttons again and those seats are gonna go ahead and raise right back up. Again, those pockets on either side. One nice thing they did add for 2026 is a really convenient way to store your cargo shade right here. We can just drop it down in this very specifically designed slot and then cover it up nice and easy so you don't have to find a place to put it. Because here in 2024, while we can remove this, it does not fit there. So you pretty much have to take it out of your car, store it in the front seat, something like that. Just kind of a pain in the butt if you did want to keep it in your car all the time, but didn't always need to use it. Let's go ahead and close these up. And we can go ahead and hop inside. And I need to because I'm dying out here. All right, hopefully the air conditioning isn't too loud for you guys. I gotta have it on. It is legit 100 degrees right now, so my face is bright red, I apologize. But I wanted to start in the 2024 because I wanted to give you kind of a baseline for what we were dealing with in the past versions of the Model Y. So first and foremost, right off the bat, the second you get in the car, you're gonna notice the steering wheel here. Steering wheel's been completely redesigned over in 2026. It's very similar to what we have in 2024 on the Model 3, but a couple differences. But you don't have all your little buttons here. You just have the two scrollable wheels here for things like volume and adjusting your speed when using FSD and things like that. You're gonna have two stalks. One is a turn signal stalk on the left side, and then you're gonna have your gear shift stalk on the right side. That's something that they improved upon or changed in 2026. Now, in all my videos, I always talk about material quality. It's one of the biggest things to me. It's one of the reasons that I love Tesla so much. But I will say, they made some improvements in 2026 because they needed to desperately, because the material quality in previous versions of Teslas was not great. And that's kind of what we're dealing with over here on the Model Y Performance. So we've got a little bit of soft touch up top, that's fine. We have the white interior, so we're gonna have the white accent pieces here. So we've got, instead of like having the wood grain, we've got kind of a white plastic. And then we've got some Alcantara here on the side of the door panels, which I appreciate. But then everything surrounding that is hard black plastic, except for the arm grip here, which is a leatherette with that accent stitching. Additionally, with the front dash here, it's 1,000 degrees, so I can barely touch it. Soft touch a little bit. We've got a little bit of a silver accent piece and then more of that white plastic, but then everything down from that is plastic as well, which again, improvements for 2026. The center console here has a soft touch leatherette, which is nice with the accent stitching. We used to have a little bit of a different design on the center console here. You still get a nice deep pocket though. So two cup holders here, you get some silver plastic here. The armrest has a clasp to it, so you have to actually squeeze that, lift it up. You can get access to this, and you've got a deep tray underneath here. It's just designed a little differently, 12-volt outlet here. Similar screen size in 2024. You're gonna have a little bit thinner bezels, to me, noticeably thinner bezels in 2026, but the screen size is the same. I think it's 15.4 dimensionally, but you're gonna get what amounts to a little bit more screen real estate because of those thinner bezels. Auto dimming rearview mirror is going to be exactly the same. You've got your cabin camera still. Your lighting system is going to be a little bit different. So you've got these clicky lights here in 2024, whereas you're going to have touch lights on 2026. The mirrors design is a little bit different. It's a little bit longer over there in 2026, but you still have the same gray liner. But again, this liner, hard plastic almost with just a thin line of fabric over the top of it. That to me is a noticeable difference over in 2026. A couple other things like inside of the infotainment system that we're gonna have that are different. Obviously the menu system is gonna look basically exactly the same because that's how Tesla does their software. And then obviously in 2026, you get the ambient lighting. So you're gonna have customizable lighting that you don't have here in 2024. Now we talk cabin materials, we gotta talk seating surfaces. Again, these are the white seats here for 2024, and I will die on this hill that Tesla had the seats nailed in this generation of Teslas. They are so plush, so comfy. I love the look of these white leatherette seats, but it's really the comfort that sets it apart. And I had this complaint from the day I got my 2024 Model 3, which I unfortunately no longer have. But the day I got my 2024 Model 3, I said, these seats are not as comfortable as they were in the previous generation. It still stands true to me, personally. Now, one big thing you're missing here in 2024, no ventilation, only heated. And man, do I wish they had ventilation on a 100-degree day like today. But unfortunately, not the case. But from everything that I've gathered, these are still pretty easy to clean. You can do yourself a favor, ceramic coat them right off the bat if you want to help improve the ease of cleaning for the white seats. Oh, and one more little note, the glove box over here for 2024 is not magnetic. It like snaps back into place, but you still have to use the on-screen button to drop it. But it just gets a little stuck sometimes. Just have to click it down like that. I don't know. Alrighty, so hopping here into the second row seats. So used to my 2024 Model 3 back seat that this feels very spacious to me. Now, a couple noticeable things stand out. First of all, those door panel materials, still not great in the back. You do have the Alcantara on the sides, leatherette handles, but again, all down from that, hard black plastic, not great. Plastic backing on the backs of these seats, nice and protective, but it does scratch really easily. Like even if you just take your shoe and just brush it up against this, it's going to leave a mark. You do have these pockets in the back of both seats. You've got 2 USB-C ports on the back, no rear screen, big difference there. But you do have these vents that you can reposition manually, a little different over in 2026 as you'll see. Center armrest that folds down, 2 cup holders here. Again, beautiful white seats here in the back. Plenty of space to tuck your feet up underneath. You won't have any issues there really at any height. It's very comfortable. Again, tons of light coming through that beautiful glass roof, but pretty simplistic back here overall. But let's go ahead and hop over to 2026. All right, welcome to the cabin of the 2026 Tesla Model Y. Now, again, some of the things I mentioned stand out right off the bat. Mainly the steering wheel redesign. It just feels so much more sleek and stylish and less like clunky and kind of overbearing. But I'm really used to the steering wheel design because of owning a 2024 Model 3. So that steering wheel almost feels foreign to me, whereas this feels normal to me. But for a lot of people, I'm sure that have owned Teslas for a while, feel kind of the opposite. But this steering wheel, it's a little bit thinner, still heated like it is over there in 2024. Your little scroll wheels seem to be a little bit smaller to me, but you have buttons now, right? All over the steering wheel. So you've got a light button, wiper button, camera button, and voice command button all on the steering wheel. And then you can obviously press in either of the dials to do play and pause music, turn on FSD, things like that. Past the steering wheel, whereas you had 2 stalks over in 2024, you now only have 1 stalk, and that's an addition from the 2024 Model 3. We had no stocks over there. But over here on the Model Y, you have 1 turn signal stock, Tesla reverted course on that. Personally speaking, because I'm so accustomed to driving my Model 3 and the Cybertruck where I have the turn signals on the steering wheel, I'm very used to that. So trying to use a stock, again, as crazy as it sounds, is kind of cumbersome to me, and I find myself clicking the wiper wipe button very consistently instead of using the actual turn signal stock. I'm sure if I drove the vehicle enough and it became my daily driver, I would get back used to using the turn signal stock, but personally, hot take here, I really like the steering wheel buttons. Having the stock, not having the stock, I don't really care. I'd rather have buttons on the steering wheel. That's just me personally though. Clearly enough people wanted the stock that they went ahead and put it back. Now let's talk materials inside of this cabin. Big improvements here for 2026, not only visually, but also for sound dampening and overall quality feel, right? So soft touch up top here, you've got some black plastic accent trim that houses the new LED ambient lighting that we have here on the Model Y to bring it in line with all of the other Tesla models, basically now that the S and X got refreshed. Everybody gets ambient lighting now if you buy a new Tesla. You've got some fabric material here on the door panel that is exactly the same as the textile fabric I had on my Model 3. You've got it across the dash. Some new speaker grille design here on the side of the door panels. You have Alcantara still, but it extends a little bit further out on the door panel than it does on 2024. And then everything down from that, as opposed to being a hard black plastic, it's a soft touch leatherette material, which is so nice and brings it in line with the other Tesla models that we have, including the Model 3. Big speaker grille down at the bottom. This does have the premium audio system as well. Leatherette on the door handles, and then you've got the updated door panel design. So you've got the updated button here to open your door, and then you have your emergency release and your automatic windows for all 4 windows, which is something we're just accustomed to on Teslas. Don't take that for granted though. Most manufacturers do not do that. That is a very nice thing that Tesla does. But one little thing we added here for the emergency release is we now have a little icon letting you know that this is the emergency release. But around the center console, we have that same kind of black leatherette with the accent stitching. It's a little bit harder here in 2026 than it was over on 2024. It's a little bit softer, so not plastic necessarily here, but just a more tough center console area, but still with the leatherette wrapping with the accent stitching. You have the same wireless chargers on both, but you have a little bit of a silver piece, like accent trim around it. And then the whole center console has received the refresh treatment. So it's got this textured gray plastic. It's the same material that we have on the back where the indirect light bar is in the back, but then they slide nice and gently open to be able to cover up the cup holders if you don't want to see them. You can't do that over on 2024. The center armrest now magnetic, so you'll hear it. Just kind of snap into place there. So no longer do you have the little latch. Nice magnet there. Same little area underneath if you want to store stuff. You got a USB-C port in here. Again, soft touch material with the accent stitching. And then across the dash, that same soft touch material, more of that textured gray plastic that you've got here. And like I mentioned, one new thing you do have is this swing mode is what Tesla calls it. And it's basically where the vent will like pivot across like this continuously, which is really nice because it doesn't just blast the cold air on you all the time. It kind of goes to different areas, so it helps it feel fresh more often. You're not just getting blasted with Arctic air, which honestly sounds pretty nice actually, so I may do that. But then you've got soft touch material all across the dash, all the way down until you get to the underneath portion, which is just plastic, but who cares? You can't even see that. Auto dimming rearview mirror is the same. Cabin camera is the same. Again, I mentioned the lighting is a little bit different. You've got touch lighting here, and then you do have your park, reverse, neutral, and drive up here as an kind of additional emergency version in case the screen isn't working because, like I said, you don't have a shift stock. So all of your shifting is going to be done either using auto shift, which I've talked about a lot, which will determine how you need to shift depending on what's in front of you or behind you. Works really well. You can do that out of park only, or you can do that all the time. I recommend using it all the time. It works very well. Or you can just shift on screen. There's a little portion that appears up here. You can just swipe back and forth. It's a really simple design there, and it removes the need for that stock here, which I love. Now, I mentioned the visor mirrors are a little bit different. They're a little bit thicker, a little bit like longer, and they kind of curve up at the end to kind of fit within the liner here. But you have the same little, LED light mirror there. It's a little bit bigger. It looks like over here, just a hair bigger. But the way that this headliner feels, much more premium. It's not hard, like it's squishy, like it doesn't click when you hit it, which I really appreciate. And again, like I mentioned, you've got that silver coated glass here. You have that customizable ambient lighting strip. Now, because this isn't my vehicle, I'm just using the key card. It goes away every time, but we can go ahead and turn it on and you can see. Now, I mentioned it over on the 2024, but these seating surfaces have been redesigned for the updated Model Y here. So these are the same seats that you're gonna get over on the Model 3. And again, they're not by any means uncomfortable. Please don't interpret what I'm saying as that they're uncomfortable seats. They are not. These are perforated down the center. These are the black seats. Obviously, you can get white if you want to, but they have ventilation down the center, so I can feel that nice cool air, which is very nice. And again, I would trade that portion alone for having slightly less cushy seats to have that ventilation. One more random little thing on the seatbelt kind of adjuster here. There's just a tiny little button that allows you to slide the seatbelt up and down, whereas it's a much larger button over there on 2024. And of course, that glove box is now in line with all of our other glove boxes, except for the Cybertruck one. So it is a nice magnetic one that smacks shut. All right, hopping here into the back of the 2026 Model Y. First thing that stands out is I got this seat too far back, but nonetheless, I still have plenty of room underneath. I got a decent amount of knee room. Pockets on the back of these seats are a little bit different. They're the same ones we had on the Model 3. They've got almost this elastic on the sides and they snap back into place. Door panel materials stay the same here in the back, which I love. I love consistency. I love when the premium materials stick around even into the back. That means a lot to me. Still very comfortable back here. Not ventilated for rear seat passengers, only heated here, but you get the same perforations. Center armrest still folds down nice and easy there. 2 cup holders here in the back. Again, the lights and the little hangers and things are a little bit different, a little bit adjusted. Really the big change back here that everyone's gonna notice, right, if you're coming from a 2024 to 2026, is the rear screen back here. Same screen we've got on the Model 3. I think it's an 8-inch screen back here. Hilariously, an 8-inch screen is about the same size that you get on most other manufacturers, but here on Tesla, they said, we'll give you an 8-inch one in the back. Who cares? I need to rephrase that, I think. But you've got all kinds of things back here you can do on this screen. You've got adjustable climate control. You've got music you can listen to, watch movies, Netflix, YouTube, play games. But one of the really nice things here on the Model Y is you can adjust all of the different seats using this control panel. So you can move the passenger seat forward and backwards. You can fold the seats using this screen, and you can also lean the seats forward and backwards using this. So you get a little bit of that extra recline here in the back that you just didn't get over in 2024, which is much appreciated here. So a nice little recline action there. But being able to move this front passenger seat forward and backwards, and then being able to fold the seats down here with just a single touch of the button, and it recognizes that I'm sitting in this seat, so I'm not gonna fold this seat, I'm only gonna fold the opposite seat, and vice versa, depending on where you're sitting, which again, just one of those little Tesla things that's really nice. You do have buttons here on the side of the seats that will allow you to fold and unfold your seats here, so one to recline and then one to fully fold. So you can do that from this side. Also, you don't just have to do it from the back. But how about we take these for a little test drive? All right, we're starting here in the 2024 Model Y Performance. Again, I'm not really gonna dive too deeply into the kind of performance components of it, because very clearly this has more performance than the 2026, which is a long range rear wheel drive. This is a dual motor performance. But I just want to talk about kind of the driving feel between the two models, and then some of the things that I notice just in kind of the very normal driving dynamics of them. First thing that I really want to point out, the second I started talking, I could notice it. It is this like hollow reverb sound that you get in here. It's not like a dampening, like it's almost like I'm echoing in here, which I make videos in these cars all day, every day, basically, right? So I'm very used to like how I sound talking in my car, in the Cybertruck, in the 2026 Model Y, because I've shot on it before. Noticeable difference here. I feel like I'm echoing like crazy, and it's kind of bothering me. So already, that is a win for the improved material quality in the newer Teslas. You know, I get a lot of people in my comments that say, these cars are crap, they always have been crap, they're not built well, they rattle, they creak. And I always reply, have you driven a new Tesla? 2024 and on. And most of the time the response is no. I have experience on previous generations. And for that I say, you're not wrong. You know, like there was a lot of creaks and rattles and some door panel shimmies and things like that. I'm not gonna argue with you on that. There was a time when the build quality on these things was just not up to snuff. That is no longer the case. Doesn't matter what model you get. You get the cheapest Model 3 you can get, the cheapest Model Y you can get, which is this one. You're going to have improved materials. You're going to have improved build quality. It's just a fact. And there's no better way to show that off or to demonstrate that than the hollow echo in here just when I'm talking. Now, I wanted to give a huge shout out to my uncle Chris for letting me borrow his Model Y Performance to make this video. I actually shot several videos on this car about a year ago when I got my Model 3, comparing it and then just talking about the Model Y in general. I had him drive the 2026 Model Y just to see if he noticed, as a daily driver of the 2024 Model Y, if he noticed some of the differences. And he said immediately. He said suspension feels better. He said you can just tell. He likes the seats in the 2026 Model Y better than these seats, and he dailies these seats. He said much better. He likes the steering wheel feel. He thinks the material quality is better. The sound dampening is better. He says it's just better all the way around. He likes the design. The only thing he likes more about this car is just the speed. He said everything else he thinks is an improvement. And that's coming from a full-time owner, a daily driver. And I understand what he's saying about the speed going from the two models. Obviously, you have a performance model. It's going to have the fastest speeds. And I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, it's hard to find performance like this. I mean, you get that instant pin back, especially from a stop. When you're rolling, you don't feel it as much, but from a stop, there's so much punch, so much torque, so much horsepower. But after driving both of them, I do want to give the new Model Y its props. It is still plenty quick, and we're talking about the long range of rear wheel drive. I have driven the all wheel drive, and that was plenty quick as well, but you got plenty of punch there, nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, you don't have that kind of punch, but when the new Model Y Performance comes out, maybe we get a little bit faster. Maybe. We'll see. I'm going to guess it's going to be about the same. I think they're going to stick with the same kind of powertrain that you've got on the Model 3 Performance, so 510 horsepower still, about 3.20 to 60. if I had to guess. I think the big things here are really just the cabin noise. You get a lot of road noise, but this has the big 21-inch Uber turbines, not exactly quiet wheels, and then some of the door panel materials and the lack of double paned glass in the back, things like that that are gonna make a little bit of an impact on road noise. It's no surprise that this thing is louder than what we've got on the new Model Y. But let's go ahead and swap over and take the 2026 for a test drive. All right, so we're inside the 2026 Model Y here, and again, first thing I noticed just immediately, and maybe it's just natural because I just started talking, is the sound difference. I'm really not sure if it's gonna come across on camera, but I swear if you jump between these two models one to one, you're gonna notice how much more compressed your talking is in here. It feels like you're talking inside of a closet instead of inside of a ballroom, if that makes sense. You don't get that big kind of ambient echoing. Again, I'm used to this because of driving the Cybertruck and my Model 3. They were both like this already. I've never daily driven a older generation Tesla before they improved the materials, so a little bit spoiled in that regard. It's a big, big difference. Now again, this is a rear wheel drive model. It is the long range rear wheel drive, so 5.4 second 0 to 60. Still got some nice punch for what it is. Doesn't have the performance punch, but most vehicles don't. This has plenty for what you need. One thing I've noticed about this new Model Y is it seems like the brake pedal like sticks out farther than I'm used to. On my Model 3, it was a little bit more sunken back, and on the Cybertruck, it's a little bit more sunken back, and on the last gen Model Y, it's a little bit more sunken back. I'm not sure if that's like a very well-documented change, but it feels like I have to move my leg completely forward to press the brake pedal, which is a little bit weird of a feeling. And I don't think it's one of those things that you can adjust the placement of the brake pedal. And you really do have to push it down to come to a stop. So just something of note, not saying it's good or bad, just interesting. But I mean, the steering wheel, immediately I can tell the difference. It feels very familiar. Still getting used to the turn signal stock. I still end up just pushing the wiper button all the time on accident, but the suspension just feels so nice. It's so smooth. You don't really feel the bumps and divots in the road as much. Really is, I think, the biggest tangible difference, other than just the material qualities being nicer. All right, I'm full pedal to the floor there. Still plenty of zip, more than almost any gas-powered SUV that you're gonna drive in. Responsiveness feels great. You can change the steering weight, so you can do like a light, a standard, and then a heavy steering weight. I usually just drive with the standard weight. I had it on the light the other day, and I was like, what is wrong with this car? It feels weird. But I've also driven with heavy on for a good bit of time, and I like that. It's really nice, makes the car feel real premium. Let's give a little. Yeah, I mean, like, it's quick. Like, it feels very similar, honestly, to my Model 3. It's about a 0.4 of a second difference in that 0 to 60 time between the long-range rear-wheel drive and the standard-range rear-wheel drive Model 3 that I had. You can get around no problem, and if it's too much acceleration for you and you like a slower car or just a little bit more relaxed experience, you can switch it to chill mode, and then it'll go even slower when you accelerate, which I would never want. Obviously, I love performance cars, but you can do that if it's not your speed. Another thing that's really nice about the updated Model Y is you can change the regen braking strength. So normally in the past you haven't been able to do this, but I can go into dynamics here and I've got standard deceleration on right now, but I can switch it to reduced. So if I speed up and then let off, it's gonna roll more like a standard car. Not totally, it's not, you know, free rolling, but it's more so like a standard car. But then with standard on, if I speed up and then let off, I get much more regen strength going on, which is much more kind of what I'm used to. Again, I think the really big noticeable changes driving the two back to back are just the overall sound dampening of this cabin, the suspension, the material quality feel, and of course we got to turn back on that ambient lighting because I love ambient lighting. So I think the big question that people are going to be asking is like, should I upgrade to the 2026? Typically speaking, it comes down to a lot of factors. It's like, do you have a hardware 3 car? Then yes, update to a hardware 4 car, blah, 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 blah. I think it's more simple than that. I think the improvements are drastic enough. The design is different enough, the driving feel is different enough, suspension and like overall ride quality is different enough, the quieter cabin, the improved materials are different enough to make the upgrade worthwhile. Personally speaking, again, this is totally my opinion. You guys do whatever the heck you want. Personally, to me, I think if you have a 2024, upgrade to a 2026. I think it's just as simple as that. And definitely if you've got an older car, a hardware 3 car, definitely worth the upgrade. But overall, I think just the fit, finish, and polish that the new 2026 Model Y has is well worth the upgrade. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like. Let me know down in the comments, which of these models do you prefer? Are you more of a fan of the last gen Model Y, or do you like the updated stylings of the new 2026 Model Y? Let's talk about it down in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be among the first to see every single new video the second I hit publish. We'll see you in the next one.